Hey, good morning, class. Welcome in. We're going to kick off semester two with our first discussion. And our first discussion for semester two is going to be on the Italian Renaissance. So let's dive into it. We'll get into a whole new discussion and a whole new era, which is going to bring about some really cool things. So let's open up. All right, so first page, you've got a really interesting painting. You've got a really detailed painting. We're going to talk more about that when we come back as a class. Um, but let's take a look here. And the first thing we're going to talk about is this notion of being out of the darkness, okay? So after enduring centuries of war, plague, death, and destruction, Europe needed a shift in their line of thinking. They had to adjust, they had to maneuver and work out of this circumstance and find some kind of light and find some kind of hope. Survivors of these awful times wanted to celebrate life and analyze the human spirit. Many began to question the authority of the church, and new styles of intellectualism and basically art are going to develop and prosper. So, the center stage for this revitalized way of life was Italy. Now, Italy was the hub for an explosion of art, writing, and critical thinking. Okay? Historians classify this period from about 1300 AD to about 1600 AD as the Renaissance. And when we look at the word Renaissance, we think of it as a rebirth. And that's definitely what's going on here. Okay? So you have a big shift, all right, from the dark, dreary, gloomy era of the Middle Ages into this new sense of hope and this new hope of prosperity. So Italy's advantages. This era was a revival for learning. Okay, people in Italy wanted to bring back the classic cultures that they saw with ancient Greece and ancient Rome. They want to bring it back and they want to really put it on a full display. With this idea of honoring the classics, people in Italy were able to create something entirely new. All right, there's an emphasis on the individual, basically mind, body, and soul, and that was paramount. Okay, and this is going to be expressed both in art and literature. That's what's being produced. You start seeing artwork and literature. It's focusing on the human mind, body, and soul. Now, the Renaissance would eventually spread into northern Italy and the rest of Europe. However, Italy would remain as the centerpiece for this Renaissance activity. So, we're going to continue with Italy's advantages. Italy's going to have three distinct advantages that allowed basically the Renaissance to flourish. Okay, they include thriving cities, a wealthy merchant class, and the classical heritage of ancient Greece and ancient Rome. So let's take a look at city-states. Oh yeah, we talked about this with ancient Greece. So with city-states, overseas trade boomed as a result of the Crusades. Okay, remember Crusades. You have this idea of spreading Christianity throughout the Middle East and retaking the Holy Land. Well, as this is going on, you've got a lot of cultural exchange going on. Ideas are going to be exchanged from port to port. These cities grew to a point of prosperity, and then we're stricken with the plague. So things got better, and the plague hit, and things really just fell apart. After the plague's devastating effects, these Italian cities would have to rebuild and re-envision a new shift toward intellectualism. So let's talk about merchants and the Medici. So a wealthy merchant class, all right, would originate out of places like Milan and Florence. Merchants could bend the rules of politics a little bit and basically maneuver or craft their way into higher positions of power. The Medici family would have the greatest amount of influence out of the merchant class. So the Medici family had huge influence. Let's talk about the Medici. Okay, the belief in individual achievement became an incredibly important aspect of the Renaissance. Merchant guilds would often compete with one another for power. So we talked about merchant guilds a little bit last unit. Now they're competing with one another to grab hold of the power that the church is starting to lose. Okay, so during the Renaissance, the city of Florence came under rule of the Medici family. All right, this powerful banking family, so they're involved in banking, controlled most aspects of all the banking activity in Italy and other parts of Europe. The Medici ruled with a fierce tenacity. Okay, one that often scared off would-be rivals. Okay, so they basically established themselves with, with gusto, with a bit of an arrogance and a bit of prestige. Okay, Cosimo de' Medici became the wealthiest man in Europe. So one example of this is when a rival family plotted to kill Lorenzo de' Medici. He was the leader of the Medici at the time. And they also plotted to kill his brother, Giuliano de' Medici. Giuliano was killed by assassins at a mass, so at a church mass. In revenge, Lorenzo had the assassins brutally executed in public. So they were able to get the culprits, they were able to bring them into the streets, and they executed them in public. And this was like, whoa, this is a big warning shot to anybody that was going to mess with the Medici family. There were going to be severe consequences. So again, here's an image that represents the Medici. Now, let's take a look at classical and worldly views, all right? So Renaissance scholars, they basically frowned upon the art styles of the Middle Ages, okay? The Gothic art, the dark, dreary kind of art. Instead, they're going to opt for more classical styles that reflect ancient Greece, ancient Rome. We start looking at Roman ruins, we look at Latin manuscripts and Greek manuscripts. They're going to all pave the way for a refreshing remodel of these classic works. So the studying of these texts led to the rise of what we call humanism. So humanism focuses on human potential and achievements. Artists and writers shape their work around the human body and mind. The classical study of these subjects of history, philosophy, and literature is referred to as what we call the humanities. Humanists argued that people should enjoy life without offending God. Therefore, many wealthy merchants enjoyed material luxuries, which is good music, good food, good wine. All these things are being shared and enjoyed, and that's what's taking place here. So we see a couple major art pieces from this era. The first, again, is the creation of Adam by Michelangelo. Okay, all right. So we see the creation of Adam. All right, and the two fingers meeting as the creation is occurring. And also we have the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci, which is the most famous painting in the world and still can be found at the Louvre in France. Side note, the Mona Lisa has been stolen many times, but has also been recovered and retrieved. It is maintained under high security at the Louvre. So let's talk about patrons of the arts. All right, so most people remained devout Catholics. However, some became more secular. All right, secular meant that a person would become more worldly and spiritual. All right, some church leaders even broke tradition and owned mansions. All right, they held lavish banquets and they wore expensive clothes. So even the church folks are kind of branching out a little bit. Church leaders beautified Rome. All right, we're going to talk about that old concept of glorifying a city. They're going to beautify Rome by spending huge sums of money on art. These patrons would financially support the artists. Often, the art would be displayed at the church of the patron church leader. So wherever that church leader was from, they would pay the artist. The artist would just create these beautiful paintings or structures, and they would get paid a fair amount of money. Now, Renaissance writers felt that all educated people were expected to create art. A man who basically excelled in all these areas was known as a universal man or a Renaissance man. Okay, someone that could basically do a lot of different things, jack of all trades. Okay, so Renaissance men and Renaissance women. Okay, so a man by the name of Baldassare Castiglione wrote a book called The Courier. In the Courier, in it, he writes that a young man should be charming, should be witty, and should be educated in the classics. He should be able to dance, he should be able to sing, he should be able to play music and write poetry. Okay. Also, a young man should be a skilled rider and swordsman. So the expectations of a man have changed now. Okay, they should be multifaceted. They should be able to read. They should be able to write. They should be able to sing and dance. They should be able to ride and potentially fight if necessary. So again, a ton of new roles and responsibilities. Now, according to the Courier, upper-class women should also know the classics and be charming. Women were expected to inspire art, but rarely create it. Okay, nor were women to seek fame. Upper-class women during the Renaissance were better educated than they were during the Middle Ages. However, women still had little influence over politics. Now, there's a woman by the name of Isabella d'Este, and she did exercise her power. She was born into a powerful ruling family. She brought basically several Renaissance artists to her court and built a famous art collection. Okay, she was very skilled in politics. When her husband was taken captive in war, she defended his land and won his release. Okay, so Isabella d'Este becomes a powerful person that's involved in the Renaissance, and again, her skills are going to bode well in this kind of political climate that the Renaissance is starting to establish. All right, so that's our opening discussion. Again, we just kind of finish up on Renaissance men and Renaissance women. We'll have a journal log that's going to go along with this, and we will have our first project, and I'm looking forward to that. All right, thanks a lot, folks. Have a good one.